Welcome back, folks. Tommy Gann, Tommy Talk. Bears are back, baby. What a win, what a win, what an ending. Jake Moody with the field goal at the end to win it. Final score, Chicago Bears 25, the Washington Commanders 24, and that's where we start off today's Tommy Talk. And folks, people will say, and a lot of people will say, the Bears, they look sloppy all game. Caleb Williams was not his sharpest by a country mile. The Commanders gave it up 3 different times, including there at the very end, which gave the Bears the opportunity to kick that game-winning field goal. They'll say all of those things. And Bears fans will come back and talk about the refs, but I don't want to talk about the refs. I want to talk about the fact that in the past, the Bears do not win that game. They don't win that last game against the Raiders either. Don't get it twisted. They don't win that game, and they don't win this game. But guess what? They did. They pulled through, they persevered, and they did. And the guy who I think should get the biggest shout out is DeAndre Swift. I think there's been a lot of hate coming his way after a slow start to the season this year and a subpar season last year. But 108 yards, he pounded the rock, 145 yards team rushing on this game. They were moving the ball effectively, including on that last drive where they were able to run it to the point where they set up Jake Moody for the game-winning field goal. 3 seconds left, put him in perfect position, and they won it. What a moment. What a game. What a win. And listen, is it sustainable? Probably not. It probably isn't. However, there is an attitude shift. Games that the Bears in the past wouldn't have won, they shouldn't have won, they have won. Games where the Bears are clutching victory out of the jaws of defeat. And that's not something the Bears usually do. The Bears, what they typically do is, oh, we're losing, falls apart. Oh, we have a chance at the end, falls apart, flat in the face. It's very bad. It's usually very bad. But tonight, that was not the case. Tonight, the Chicago Bears pull through and avenge a franchise-changing loss a year ago on that Hail Mary from Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels looked pretty good tonight. In spite of the interception, in spite of everything, in spite of that last fumble at the end of the game, he looked pretty good all game. Better than, to be honest, he looked better for the most part than Caleb did, I will say. However, one quarterback got the win and one quarterback got the loss, and the winning quarterback was Caleb Williams. So, score 1 for Caleb, good for Caleb. The Bears now, they have historically struggled coming out of the bye. The last 11 years, 1-10 coming out of the bye. They win this one. Huge win. Congratulations, Ben Johnson and your Chicago Bears. Moving on to another team I love, a game I was at this weekend. The Colorado Buffaloes and Coach Prime finally break through after a brutal losing streak. Losing against BYU after being up 14-0. Losing against TCU after being up 14-0. Games where they should have won, and quarterback play kind of held them back. Some defensive inefficiencies held them back, and that's where we start. I have criticized Caden Salter pretty harshly, especially over the last couple of weeks. However, he stepped up and he did deliver, putting on a much better performance than he had the 2 games before. And Iowa State fans are still going to be angry about that called back PI. However, it was the right call, and I'll tell you why. And I might get flooded with hate from Iowa State fans, but hear me out. For it to be PI, it needs to be catchable. When it gets picked off, which would happen on that play, it gets picked off, it's no longer catchable. And that's the end of the story. That's why the PI was called back. Now, if you want to say it should have been holding, fine, sure. Absolutely. I could understand that, but it wasn't called holding. It was called PI, and the PI was picked up. Simple as that. Simple as that. Now, I have a couple things to say to Matt Campbell, and Matt Campbell apparently is going to be a candidate for the next topic coming up here, but a couple things for Matt Campbell here. So, with 7 minutes to go on his own 18, you're only down by 4. Basically, you have two options. You go for it, and then if you don't get it, it was a 4th and 1, I believe. If you don't get it, then you put the Buffs in a great position. If they score a touchdown, you're screwed. And if they get a field goal, now you're just not in a good position. The smart thing to do, I think, in most people's minds, punt it away, let your defense do something. You have plenty of time to get the ball back. Instead, they go for it. They don't get it. He's lucky the Buffs didn't get a touchdown there. They just kicked the field goal. And then on their next drive, they're on the CU 47. There's only 3:48 left. And this is the point where you say, okay, you go for it. Now you go for it. Because if you punt it away, now the Buffs can run down the clock. They can run down the clock. Even if you get the ball back, you're down 7. You're going to be probably pinned back down in your zone. And you're going to have to score 7. So go for it now. Well, what's the worst case scenario? The Buffs get it back in really good field position? That's probably what was going to happen. You're probably still going to be in sort of the same spot, relatively speaking. So why not just go for it? They didn't. They decided to punt it. I think those were two really baffling decisions. If I were an Iowa State fan, I'd be talking more about that than the PI call, for sure. And one last thing. People are going to get angry with Buffs fans for rushing the field. And I would be angry if I was not a Buffs fan. But I do like it. I will admit I'm biased, but I do like it. However, there was a video that came out of a Buffs fan grabbing the helmet away from an Iowa State player. And I got to say, low-class behavior, total low-class behavior. We're better than that, Buffs fans. You know it. I know it. Cut it out. Stop it. Now on to some big news over the weekend. James Franklin, after a back-breaking, horrific loss against Northwestern, after another back-breaking, horrific loss to UCLA, out, fired at Penn State. They're going to have to pay up like $50 million in a buyout. Crazy stuff. Clearly, Penn State was under a lot of pressure to fire him. Clearly. And part of that possibly came from Adidas. Because Adidas, they're entering into a new thing with Penn State, and supposedly they played a part. I don't know if that's true, but supposedly. And now, this is the issue you run into. James Franklin's been there for a decade. He's a program builder, and he has built out that program. He has built up the program from when they were really at their lowest lows, and right there with the scandal at the end, the one of the worst scandals in college, probably the worst scandal in college football history. He built them up, and yes, he couldn't win the big ones, and then finally couldn't win the small ones. But now you are in a dangerous position where you have to find a guy who's going to bring you farther than James Franklin will. But really, realistically speaking, and you need to go all in. You need to be throwing long balls. You need to be trying to hit a home run here. You can't go for a double. You go for a double, and you end up in the same spot you were in before with a guy who's maybe not as good of a recruiter and probably not as good of a program builder. So that's why when I hear people talk about someone like Matt Rhule, and I get that he's a Penn State alumni. I get it. I understand it. I understand he's built some stuff that's really good at Baylor. He builds some stuff that was really good at Temple. And he's done an okay job with Nebraska so far. Don't get me wrong. But needs to be avoided by any means necessary. A guy who also can't win the big one. You're just replacing a guy who can't win the big one with a guy who can't win the big one. What are you doing? There are a small list of people that you should be calling if you are Penn State. Number one, by far, is Curt Cignetti from Indiana, who had the biggest regular season win in Indiana history this last weekend against Oregon, at Oregon. They dominated most of that game. He is by far the number one. Now, what's going to be tough is Indiana has very deep pockets. They got the Mark Cuban money going on there. That money does not just go to basketball. It's going to football now. So that could screw you over when it comes to that, getting him to Happy Valley. Now, my second call, and people are going to criticize this and say I'm being ridiculous, but I think to me, it seems like the only call to make, realistically. I mean, after you make that first call to Cignetti, you make a call to Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer. And yes, I get it. I understand the stench coming off Urban Meyer. I understand how things went in Jacksonville. But there are a few proven winners that probably would hop back into that role quite like Urban Meyer. Very few winners. Very few winners. Very few winners. And if Penn State doesn't go after him, I think Florida should go after him if and when they fire Billy Napier. But putting that aside, go after him for sure. And I mean, that's a guy who can win the big one. And also maybe put in a call. And listen, this is not going to happen. They're not going to get Nick Saban. Let's put it out there. They're not getting Nick Saban, but you should at least make the call just for the courtesy of making the call. But you're not going to get him. But you might get Urban Meyer if you throw enough cash at him. And that's the guy you got to go get. At least in my opinion, if you don't get Kurt Signetti. But someone like Matt Rhule or Kalen DeBoer or Manny Diaz, all the recipes for failure. All recipes for failure. Okay? Call Lane Kiffin before you call those guys. Seriously. That's a program builder. That's a guy who's won more big games for sure than James Franklin has in the last decade. Absolutely. So, no. Throw that all away. Signetti, Urban Meyer, make a call to Saban, even though that's not going to work. Lane Kiffin. Those are the calls you need to make. And as you go down the list from there, you need to start getting more creative and start pounding the pavement to see what established big-time coaches might be looking for a way out. That's what I'd say. You need to throw money at the situation in a serious way, but you cannot fall into the trap that is Matt Rhule and company. Just telling you now. That is a nickel worth of free advice, Penn State fans. Now, something that I have dreading talking about. Brewers lost tonight, by the way, 2-1. Womp womp. But the Cubs lose to the Brewers in the NLDS 3-2. They come back from down 0-2 and what was a really brutal going down 0-2. Really brutal. They come all the way back. They claw, scratch their way back, and in the end, they can only score one run in that final game, lose 3-1. I think the home field advantage thing definitely worked against them. To be fair, even if we did win Game 5, the rotation is very rickety. There's some issues with the pitching that might have held them up in a series against the Dodgers anyway, which, is loser talk. But, even if they get Horton back, I don't know if they would have been able to do it. Plus, the reliance on the long ball could have been a death knell for them as well. Brewers and White Sox fans, enjoy yourselves. Seriously, because they were definitely enjoying themselves all over social media. Enjoy yourselves, please. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves. Take your time. Really soak it in. I know it's tough. I am a smaller brother. I don't have any big brothers. I have a bigger sister, but I am the youngest child. I understand for small brothers, for little brothers, it feels good when you knock big brother off his block a little bit. You can dance around a little bit, get a little excited. But at the end of the day, you are still a little brother. The little brothers are still the little brothers, and the big brothers are still the big brothers. And if you're a White Sox fan, you're like 100 feet underground, laughing your head off, while the Cubs are alive and well, and you're not even close to being alive. Just want to put that out there. Just saying. Another team that took a loss this last week was the Browns. They lost 23-9 against the Steelers. And this is a PSA similar to me telling the fans of Penn State and Penn State admin not to hire Matt Rhule. Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski. Kevin, the villagers are getting ready to pull out their pitchforks and torches to go after you. Right or wrong? You can tell the patience is wearing thin. It was a pathetic performance on Sunday. You got two pretty uninspiring performances out of Dylan Gabriel. I know he's a rookie, and I get the idea that you need to let him get his reps in and take his lumps. But when you're trying to keep your job and you're trying to develop quarterbacks for the future, I don't know how productive it is to have a guy who is almost certainly much more talented and much more electric guy riding the pine behind Dylan Gabriel. I know I'm biased, but it's time to hit, bang, the Shedeur button and bring in Shedeur. Bring in the Shedeur. you got to let the big dog eat. And I get it. Some people would say this is a desperation move. Like Mark Trestman starting Jimmy Clausen over Jay Cutler, or Ben McAdoo benching Eli for Geno Smith. But those were established starters. And Dillon Gabriel ain't an established starter. These are two different rookie commodities at quarterback, and you need to see where the values lie between those two. And what really is the worst that can happen? You lose to Carson Wentz in this 2 days ago, and then you get 2 games ago, and you get dog walked by ancient Aaron Rodgers. Is it really going to get much worse at this point? Okay, I don't think Dillon Gabriel is going to be the guy. Okay, in all likelihood, you're probably going to end up drafting a quarterback next year, and Dillon Gabriel is going to be out on the street, or he's going to be riding the bench forever. So why not give your guy Shedeur a chance? The fans are cheering for him. Everyone wants him in there. Bring him in. And I know, as a Colorado fan and a Colorado enjoyer, he is an electric talent. He has the accuracy. He has the mobility. He is the guy that can elevate your team above their talent level. I don't think that's the kind of guy you get with Dillon Gabriel. I think, what's the worst that happens? You start him. You lose. You've been losing. But the best thing that could happen, maybe it's perfect timing. Just saying. Finally, I want to start a new segment here, Rant of the Week. I have a tough time with this show because I'm always like, I want to talk about stuff that's not sports related, but this is a sports show, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? I think this is where I'm going to start doing that. Different topics, different little things like that. I don't want to get political for the most part, but I want to talk about some things, maybe kind of a grinds my gears. Family Guy. Remember Family Guy? You know what really grinds my gears? Do something kind of like that. We need to stop swearing. You need to stop swearing. I need to stop swearing. And I'm not trying to really take a moral stand here. I'm not trying to grandstand about morals and the morality of swearing and stuff like that. And if I am, it's really in a much more roundabout way, not direct way. Some background. I recently watched the hit television series Mad Men again. I rewatched it. Great show. Classic program. And in spite of all the carousing, the antics, adultery, drinking, smoking, swearing, racism, sexism, etc., people rarely swore. People even point out when people swear in the show, like, hey, you're swearing. Like, that's pretty crazy. All this stuff is going on. And the swearing out the window. People were more like gentlemen, I guess, in public. And I get it's a television show. You could say I'm getting duped by a television show, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that's probably a fair depiction of what was going on in the 60s. And yes, you could say, are you just a normie getting, fooled by television? Oh, you're going to just do what television tells you to do. This has been kind of percolating in my head for a while, and this just brought it to the surface. Okay? I've heard this sentiment before. I've seen people do this before. This brought me back to it. And people will swear, and this is important to understand, people will swear because they want to get a point across, or they want to sound more adult or more dangerous. And you have a lot of people that swear, and they sound like they're so out of practice doing it, they just sound like they sound lame just by the use of the swear word, like the improper use of swear words and the improper timing of it. Sometimes I feel like I'm even doing that. And you know what? Better than using swear words naturally, and if you're going to swear, at least use it naturally. But better than that, be a little more creative with your exasperated things. I get exasperated on here all the time, and I've sworn a little more than I should have. But I don't usually swear all that much on here. Get exasperated and be a little more creative. If you got to swear, at least save it for a rainy day so that way it has more impact and punch to it rather than just swear like a sailor and then it loses all impact and everything and all things like that. I mean, you see that in vocabulary already. The word fantastic, for example, it's interesting. The word fantastic now has like a positive connotation. In the past, it was kind of negative. It seemed like it's too good to be true. And now we use it fantastic as like amazing. And now it's lost all meaning in that kind of way. Swearers have lost all meaning for a lot of people. And listen, I'm not trying to say I'm like some glittering model. I swear too much myself. I've been swearing since I was in 8th grade. I think that's when I started to really, hit the swear button. But This is just a rant to drive the point home, at least for myself. Okay? To like encourage myself to look back at this and say, stop swearing. Don't swear. Don't swear. And that's kind of the point here. I mean, I guess I'm moralizing a little bit, but towards myself to say, stop swearing, Tommy, because you sound like an idiot, or you don't sound like a gentleman. Be a gentleman. We don't have enough gentlemen in this world today. How about we bring in some gentlemanly like things a little bit more? And one of those things, maybe, just maybe, don't swear. Not 8th grade anymore. It's not all that cool. Maybe stop swearing. Just a thought. Just a thought. Thank you all for watching and or listening, probably watching. Please subscribe to Tommy Gahan on YouTube, at Tommy SGAHAN on Instagram, on Twitter, on the TikTok. And please like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Leave a comment. Tell me how much you hated this podcast and how it was a waste of your day. But you know what? Interact a little bit. Live a little. But don't swear. Don't swear. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm Tommy Gahan, and this has been Tommy Talk. Bears win. See ya.